Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Time now for your Donald Trump news. Much of it culled from a meeting at the New York Times earlier today, which was scheduled, then cancelled, then scheduled again. Tonight, the president-elect believes that humankind has played a role in climate change. Yesterday, of course, he thought it was all a hoax invented by the Chinese. He currently doesn't want to prosecute Hillary Clinton for anything. During the election campaign, you'll recall, he insisted that she would be jailed in the event of him winning and regularly encouraged supporters to chant, "Lock her up." And while some of those supporters chose to celebrate his victory in Washington this weekend by making Nazi salutes and espousing undiluted white supremacism, today Trump strongly condemned the so-called alt-right extremists who nonetheless still consider his chief of staff, Stephen Bannon, to be a sort of patron saint of the whole movement. Here, in case you haven't seen it, is the footage of a man called Richard Spencer who claims to have coined the very term alt-right, addressing fellow fascists in DC on Saturday.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory! For us, it is conquer or die. The mainstream media, or perhaps we should refer to them in the original German, Lügenpresse.
Ambassador Wendy Sherman is senior counsellor, Albright Stonebridge Group, and was President Obama's Deputy Secretary of State until last year. She previously worked as his Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs. Wendy, I don't want to seem ungrateful for you giving us your time tonight, but are we wasting our time trying to analyse Donald Trump at this point? It seems a little like nailing or trying to nail jelly to the wall, or jello, of course, as you would say.
Well, I think what's happened here, and President Obama spoke to this when he met with President-elect Trump, is that he is now coming to understand what it is to be President of the United States, and that these issues are complex, and there's a reason why President Obama has proceeded in the way he has. So, yes, I am glad that he has condemned the alt-right meeting that took place, but I would also like him to apologize for all the demeaning things he said during the election that have many people in the streets of my country very scared on a daily basis about what's going to happen and whether their rights are going to be protected. I'm glad he said that maybe humankind has something to do with climate, but I want to make sure he's going to hold on to the climate accord, which the whole world has signed up to. So I don't know that we're throwing spaghetti against the wall, but I do agree with you, James, that we don't know exactly where we're going to land, and we'll see whether President-elect Trump really becomes in fullness what is required of a president of the United States.
You mentioned the people living in fear of some of the comments he made, or in fear of the ramifications of some of the comments he made. There was plenty of people, of course, who cheered them. If he doesn't deliver on the stuff that you worry about, would you not have a whole new raft of worries that his supporters might have a grievance?
Well, his supporters may have a grievance, but they won the election, and he is the president-elect, even though Secretary Clinton got the majority of the popular vote. As your viewers, I'm sure, know by now, we have an electoral college system so that small states get to have a say and our large states can't decide through a popular vote who wins. So we have a pretty divided country in terms of the feelings here, and what the President of the United States is supposed to do is bring the country together. President-elect Trump has yet to do that, and to give reassurance to the people who did not vote for him. I was glad the night of the election that he said he wanted to be president for all of America, but he has yet to take the steps and say the things, in my view, that will give people the assurance they really do need. And of course, we have to see what his policies bring on issues like immigration, what he's going to do about really taking on all of the wealth that is at the top of our population and not well distributed throughout the population. So there's a lot to be seen and a lot to come ahead. So we are all watching and waiting and making sure that we state forthrightly what is necessary to really be President of the United States.
Let's look briefly at things we do know. I've been swatting up on some of your speeches in the context of international diplomacy, whether when you were speaking in Geneva just before the Iran negotiations began in 2013, and then at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in February of last year. It's really boring, isn't it, a lot of this negotiation? It's really dull, it's really detailed, and it demands a level of application and attention to detail that, well, perhaps President-elect Trump hasn't yet demonstrated much of. Does he need it, or can you be more like Ronald Reagan and have people like you doing the heavy lifting in the background?
Well, you certainly can delegate, for sure, but you do have to have a grasp of what is necessary. And, you know, like probably many Americans, I picked up a paperback copy of The Art of the Deal because Donald Trump's book that was so popular in this country, because I wanted to understand how he thought about things. And quite frankly, doing a deal for a building is different than negotiating change when it comes to international security. Because if a building doesn't get built, a building doesn't get built. If the Iran negotiation had not been successful, we might find ourselves all at war. So the stakes are quite different. And of course, there are many people who have an interest in the outcome. That agreement in particular was not just a bilateral arrangement with the United States. It was an agreement that was reached with the entire international community.
Very briefly, if you would, the co-author of that book, Tony Schwartz, said before this meeting at the New York Times that Trump won't just have his eye on closing down elements of the press and the media. He'd be keen to enact some sort of silencing of freedom of speech. Do events today make that look a little excessive, that observation?
Well, to go back to your opening, James, for today, it makes it look better. He actually had the meeting with the New York Times. He said the First Amendment was something no one should worry about, which is our freedom of speech. He did an on-the-record interview with the New York Times, but that's today. Okay. We need to see a sustained openness.
Starting tomorrow. Wendy Sherman, many thanks indeed for your time this evening.